Hi, welcome to Take 5, where we daily consider devotional thoughts from Oswald Chambers' book, My Utmost for His Highest. Today is February 14th, and the title of today's study is The Discipline of Hearing. Whatever I tell you in the dark, speak in the light, and what you hear in the ear, preach on the housetops. Matthew 10 and verse 27. Dr. Chambers opens today's study by saying, sometimes God puts us through the experience and discipline of darkness to teach us to hear and obey Him. Moses was an individual who was adopted by a foreign family, yet whose heart remained with his own people. In an action performed hastily without consideration of the ramifications that it would bring, he killed a man who was attacking one of his own Hebrew people. This is told to us in Exodus chapter 2. And due to his actions, Moses flees for his life from Egypt. When in chapter 3 a visual of Moses is given, it says that Moses sat down by a well. Verse 15. Well, now the actual word here means that he rather slumped over next to the well. Moses was in the dark, for he had seen himself acting in a kind of way as a champion for his people, and yet they rejected him. Moses was in a time of darkness, not hearing from God and not knowing what to do. This period of darkness, Acts chapter 7 and verse 30 tells us, lasted for some 40 years. But during that time, mind you, God was preparing Moses for the actual ministry intended for him to perform, the leading of the Hebrews out of the bonds of enslavement of the Egyptians, leading them to a promised land, promised some 450 years before to the ancestors of Moses, but only then coming into fulfillment. The man Moses had been raised as a rich kid in the palace of the Egyptian Pharaoh. He was a smart guy, but he had by no means been prepared for the task that God had for him of leading a rebellious, cantankerous herd of some 1 million people through a desert with herds of cattle and tents and gripes and groans, with no spiritual map or laws of how to live, to lead that group for a 40-year period. Moses had needed that time away from wealth to be prepared for the wilderness. But that's certainly a long time to not know why things had gone the way they did. Exodus 3 and verse 2 tells us that one day God appeared in a burning bush to Moses and said, "Moses, have I got a plan for you?" Chambers spoke as to the why of these spiritual dark times in our lives in his opening sentence, to teach us to hear and obey Him. The season for silence should be a very humbling experience, as he addresses in his final paragraph, so that we will well know that the answer, the solution, is not from us or from our own scheming or creation, but from God and in the timing of God. Perhaps you are in the dark over a particular trial you are facing, circumstances through which you're going, an outcome that didn't come out as expected, some events or trials over which you turn to God and say, "Lord, I don't understand why." Chambers says that in this time of darkness, remain quiet and wait. Wait on the Lord. An interesting point he draws. When you are in the dark, listen, and God will give you a very precious message for someone else once you are back in the light. For Moses, the darkness was not particularly about him, but God's plans for those around him. God used him for the good of others. God can be preparing you for works in someone else's life and not your own, but you can't see that at your current time. This is why we should not get so discouraged when trials come and things don't go the way we think that they should, because the events may not even be about us, but for someone else. God has purpose in everything that He allows and does in our life. Trust Him. If you haven't yet read today's devotional from Dr. Chambers, I encourage you to do so, for it will enhance the time we spend together. It's available free online for study. I invite you to share here your thoughts from today's reading, any questions that you may have, and please share prayer requests as well. And now may God's grace and peace be ours as we seek to live our utmost for His highest. Thanks for being here today. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day.